All right, hello. My name is Jordan White, and I did my internship with Barton College Football. Before I go into the details about what I did exactly in my internship, I wanted to give a little background about Barton College Football. So the last time Barton College Football played a game before this season was in 1950, and that's when they were the Atlantic Christian College. So they weren't even Barton College yet. They took away the football program, and it originally came back in 2020, and we were supposed to have a full season. But of course, as many of you know, COVID-19 hit. We did end up playing a little spring 5 games, but that didn't count in any NCAA standings or record books. So it technically wasn't our first season. And this fall was the official start of Barton College football, which saw the end of a winning record of 6-5. Barton College is a private liberal arts college, and it has over 120 football athletes on the team right now. Barton College football signed a schedule agreement with the Southern Athletic Conference, known as the SEC. They are supposed to be a full-time member starting next year, so that is exciting. Next, I just wanted to give y'all just a little video of just what it's like to be a part of Barton College football and one of the best days that I was a part of.
You kidding me? That's right, 26-20. Barton.
Doesn't want to play, huh?
Shocks Wingate.
There we go.
Man, it's amazing. We worked so hard for this moment. Last year we came out here and they stomped all over us, man. 55-14. We've been talking that all week in practice, and we just came out and we took it to them. I mean, it really shows what we guys doing. We got a bunch of great guys out here. It's amazing. We just got closer. We became friends. We actually started doing things together. We started eating together. We started really caring for each other and loving each other. And you can see the bond we got now, and it really shows.
Hey, and nothing but God. Nothing but God and my teammates working hard every week in the weight room, trying to get bigger, faster, stronger. When we came back, we had a chip on our shoulder, and we executed.
It feels good. I mean, they had us last year, but I kept telling the guys, not this year, and we stick through it. We went into overtime and got it done. Just perseverance, man. We knew that we're a different team this year. We knew it was going to be a different outcome. We're stronger, we're faster, we're smarter, and we just wanted it more. We just wanted it more. They came in here, they thought they were just going to run all over us again. It's not the case, man. Barton's on the come up. And this is a warning. This is a warning. You better be ready. And you better bring your best each week. This Barton's coming.
You kidding me? That's right. You kidding me? That's right.
And that brings me to Coach Chip Hester, who is a head football coach for Barton College. And although he's not who I did my internship under, I wanted to include him in my presentation because of a model that he always told us before every game and pretty much at the end of every practice. Basically, it was saying if something good happens, keep playing. And if something bad happens, keep playing, because no doubt there's going to be bad things that happen in a football game, and there's going to be good things that happen in a football game. You just can't control that. And it's something that you can apply to life too. Like, of course, not every day is going to be good. Not everything is going to go your way in life. Sometimes you're going to have to take a loss. Sometimes you're going to have to get knocked down, but you have to keep going and you have to keep pushing forward, because if not, then you're just going to stay in that bad place that you're in, and you're not going to be successful because you're scared to move on. So if something bad happens or you take a loss, you get up and you keep going and you strive to be better. And that brings me to the football field. So this is our game field that we also actually practice on a lot, and this is where I spent a majority of my time due to, of course, the sport being football. So a lot of it revolved around practice and practice setup. So making sure the field was up to standards due to like weather concerns, or if the turf was messed up, we had to go check that out before practice started. We had to bring all the equipment out, make sure everything was set. We had to make sure the sleds were there for the D line, make sure the pads were there for the offensive line, make sure we had our hurdles for the DBs, and just make sure everything was set to go so we could come out there and just get started on practice. And then that brings me to Coach Burnett, who is actually who I did my internship under. Coach Burnett is the defensive coordinator and the DB's coach at Barton College. He's someone that was kind of like a role model to me. He was the first coach that reached out to me while I was getting recruited and basically told me that he needed me. And that was probably like one of the biggest factors that played in my commitment to Barton College because he just kept telling me that every day, I need you. I need a person like you in my program. I need a person like you in my program. So it made me feel welcome. It made me feel wanted. And that's all I was looking for. I just wanted a new home. And I found it. Which brings me to coaches' meetings. Now, some of the pictures aren't going to be pictures of actual Barton College events because I wasn't allowed to take pictures, which is why I have this random picture of coaches. But basically, I got to sit in on a couple of coaches' meetings, and there'd be different kind of meetings. So we'll have some meetings before practice, which is just going over the schedule for practice, like what we're going to do, how many periods we're going to have. Is there going to be special play calling? Um, is there going to be conditioning at the end? And then sometimes they'll have coaching meeting before a game coming up, game planning to see, all right, they run a cover two a lot, so we should run these plays. The offense likes to run up the middle, so we have to fill the A gap and the B gap. And basically, they would just talk and try to pick each other's brains about what would be the best, methods for practice to make the team game ready, and then what's the best methods for the game in order to come out with a win. Which brings me to a coach's checklist. So I got to see a lot of the checklist, which is again comes in different forms. You have the practice checklist, you have a pregame checklist, you have a coach's evaluation of players checklist. So for the practice checklist, it's just make sure everything's up to date, everything's standard. So like, is the weather good? What's the temperature? Measuring the heat index. Make sure every player is healthy. Make sure every player who isn't healthy, who is banged up, is going to rehab and going to physical therapy if they need it. And make sure they're doing everything they need to take care of their body in order to be game ready. The pre-game checklist is a little different. So this is going over if the players have all their equipment, if the players have their uniforms, their socks, if it's a away game, their travel bags, make sure that everyone's accounted for, where the pregame meal is coming from, and just stuff like that. And then the player evaluation is just going through. Since we only had the spring season, we didn't really have a lot of evaluations, but basically it's evaluating the season and breaking down what the player did good and what the player needs to work on. Which brings me to the locker room. A part of my internship was cleaning up and looking after the locker room. So I would vacuum, take out the trash, and fold towels, make sure the towels were in the locker room, make sure that equipment was put up right in the locker room because Coach Morris was very big on that. He liked everything to be up to a standard. So all the helmets on the right side, clothing on the left. Make sure everything is hung up. If it's not on your loop and it's not in the car, it's not getting washed. So that was a big thing for them. So I basically did my best to double check the locker room every time I had to clean it to make sure I was keeping it up to par because I know that that was something that he stressed a lot about. Which brings me to laundry. Part of my internship was doing laundry. So after every practice, we have to wash the clothes because of bacteria and sweat. You don't want the players getting sick or getting an infection. Washing, of course, the game jerseys or the game uniforms before and after a game. So washing before we play in a game and of course washing it after the game to make sure it's ready for the next game. Even if we're wearing a different uniform combination, it still has to get washed. So usually defenses will, excuse me, usually defense will put all their practice gear in one cart and they will wash that, and then offense would do the same. They wash that separately because offense wears white jerseys with black pants, defense wears blue jerseys with black pants. So they basically split it up so they could do whites and colors. And I know that the pants were black, so they'll wash all the pants together with the blue jerseys and then the white jerseys by themselves so they could bleach it if needed. With the uniforms, the same deal. So we had white uniforms, blue uniforms, black uniforms. They all got washed separately so the colors wouldn't spread and they could treat them and the stains differently. Like I mentioned before, a part of cleaning up the locker room is making sure the equipment is all put out and set for each athlete. So the reason I put this picture, this would be like before a game. So making sure everyone, as you can see in the picture, everyone has their jersey, everyone has their pants, everyone has a bag, everyone has a laundry bag, which we didn't have laundry bags. We had laundry loops. Make sure your shoulder pads are in your locker. Make sure your helmet's in your locker. You have your cleats. Basically, just going down to make sure all the players and their lockers was full of the equipment that they needed for a game day. So this was very important because if there was something wrong with the player's pants or the player was missing their jerseys or their helmet was broken, you have to be able to spot this before the game starts because you're not going to have time to deal with these matters like an hour before the game because you're going to be getting ready to go play. So you got to make sure you do this hours before. So it's very important. And that brings me to loading the bus. So once again, just as I mentioned in the last slide, once you have all that equipment set and you can see all that equipment, players will pack their bags if it's a away game, and you have to make sure that those bags get on the bus. Another thing that needs to be on the bus is the equipment. So we have to have the coaching equipment, the headsets, the batteries, the clipboards, the bulletin boards, all that stuff has to be made sure it's on the bus because those are vital. Another thing that needs to be accounted for is water and snacks. Some of the trips are a pretty lengthy trip, so a lot of times the coaches will bring snacks for us, even food, which will go underneath the bus. So that has to be all accounted for, and there's a sheet to keep track of it all. So you have to check it all off, and then I will hand it to a coach before we drove off. So of course, they would double check behind me, but it's another big deal that you make sure all that equipment and all that stuff is on the bus because it's vital for your team in a game. And lastly, I had this computer with a recruiting profile up because part of my internship was sitting down and watching film of athletes with Coach Burnett and basically just picking his mind about how he evaluated these athletes. And he basically did it on not a 3 point scale, but it was a scale that consisted of three parts. So he would grade the players, and if they fit the top part of the scale, that means they could come to Barton and be a starter. If they were in the middle, they could come, but they would have to fight for rotation and minutes. And if they're at the bottom of the scale, uh, a PWO, which is a position to walk on, which means the Barton football would not offer them any money for a scholarship. They could still get academic money, but Barton football would not, but they would be welcome to walk onto the team. So they would still be a part of the team, just not on scholarship. So that was a cool aspect because I always wondered like how coaches broke down film that was sent to them, and it's a long process. It's a lot of emails each and every day because there's athletes all around the world out there trying to get recruited. So I would say it's about 200 emails every day, and he doesn't go through all of them, but if it's a high interest prospect or someone that is doing a lot in their county or at their school, definitely going to look into it and watch their film. My takeaway: there's a lot that goes on with coaching that isn't just coaching, which is something that I wasn't really aware of. Which is why I have these pillars because the four pillars are coaching, training, mentoring, sorry, training, mentoring, coaching, and consulting. So of course, training your athletes, training your mind to be mentally strong, mentally stable, because there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be a lot of bad that happens. There's going to be athletes that get in trouble that you have to take care of. So a lot of the blame as a coach is going to get put on you because you recruited these players. So they're acting up. That falls back on you, which ties into the mentoring. So if you take a kid from a bad environment, you have to mentor that kid to fit the program and the environment that he's in. Because as we all know, Barton is a Christian school. So even though religion isn't pushed on us at this school, you still have to be able to fit that setting because there's a lot of excuse me, there's a lot of professors here that have very strong religious beliefs. So you can't just be running around campus cussing and showing your butt because that's disrespectful. So you have to be able to mentor these young kids and students into a way that fits the program. And of course, coaching. You're a football coach. You have to be able to coach. That's your job. And consulting, there's always going to be something bad that happens, like I said. So you have to be able to consult your players and let them know what they're doing good and what they're doing bad. A lot of the consulting comes from grades too, because a lot of students, well, excuse me, a lot of student athletes don't really take into mind how hard it is to balance football, which is, I would say, which is about 6 to 8 hours of your day every day while trying to keep up with grades. And you're not just taking one class, you can be taking up to 5 classes. And those classes might all have homework on the same day. So you have to be able to balance your life, which really ties into mentoring too, because if you're coming straight out of high school, you're not used to this. I mean, yeah, you had school all day, but football was what, maybe an hour and a half, if that 2 hours, where in college, it's literally every day of your life. You're sacrificing your time for football. You're waking up at 6 a.m. for weights. Then you have treatment at 10. Then you have meetings. You have walkthrough. You have maybe some more treatment, maybe some taping. You have practice for 2.5 hours. Then you have film. And then you might have late night film study or early morning film study. So you just go to sleep and you do it all over again. And then you still have to tie in to homework and grades. So at the end of that day, you still have to go home and do your homework. So it's a lot. So it takes some consulting for these coaches to talk to these players about what they really get into and if this is something they really want to do. So that was my biggest takeaway of just how hard this profession really is. And I never really realized that until this internship. So thank you. That is my presentation.